All right. My name is Micah, and
I'm Taylor.
this video is going to be about why we decided to leave Jehovah's Witnesses. To start, maybe we can talk a little bit about why we decided to make this video. We've been talking about it for a while. We left, it's been about 2 years ago. So we finally decided that we're going to put this video out. So for you, what do you feel like are the main motivators for you to want to make this video?
I just want people to hear it from us. I mean, I know they're going to hear different sides of the story, some stuff true, some stuff made up, whatever. Want you guys to hear it from us, strangers, people that we know, family, friends. Want you to hear our opinions and just the truth behind the story. That's the main thing for me. We're not crazy. I want people to know that we're not crazy. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, a big reason is when I left, I felt so alone. And it was important for me to watch other people's videos where they talked about why they left, what they were going through. So just to pass that along as well. And like you said, to be able to put our story out there, whether it is friends or family who may see this, of course we love you. We don't have ill feelings towards people.
Anybody at all.
For friends who we have who are not witnesses who may see this, to help them to understand what it's like to be a Jehovah's Witness, what our experience was like. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to go first with a little background?
You got it.
All right, so my family. So growing up, my mom was a witness. My dad was not. My mom's family became witnesses when she was early, maybe like 3-4 years old. And this was the late 60s. So my mom did not get baptized, though, until she was pregnant with my middle brother. So I'm the youngest of 3 boys. So my mom was in her mid-20s when she got baptized. Then they had me later. Growing up, she was inactive for a while. My dad was not a witness. So we would go to meetings, but like Sunday. We would go to Sunday, we'd go to the talk, and then Watchtower comes and we're going.
Which is like the dream for me.
And then we would go, of course, to the memorial and maybe like a day of the convention, like when they would have the drama. We may go to that day of the convention.
Did your dad come with you to the memorial?
Yeah.
He did?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my dad was, when I was young, I know he and my mom had disagreements about it, but yeah, he wasn't like openly opposed to, he didn't try to stop me from going or anything. Eventually, I had some cousins who were getting more serious about it. My mom began to get more serious about it. So then, we'd start to go to the book study. That was a big thing where we'd go to the book study, you'd have goodie night, get to know some people's, time to spend time with family. Then the big thing that happened. So I have, my theory is that for a lot of people to either go to a religion or leave from a religion, for a lot of people, it takes a pretty large event in their life.
Some type of catalyst.
Yeah, there's some kind of catalyst or force. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. See, I was going into 6th grade. My middle brother was diagnosed with cancer. So he was 17 years old at the time. You hear a kid getting cancer, you fear for the worst. So he had his surgery, then he had radiation treatment for 6 weeks, and it was rough. It was really rough on him. So the witnesses were coming around a lot, and that left a big impression on my dad. He had studied on and off for years. He grew up Presbyterian. Yeah, within a couple years he was baptized, or a year or two he was baptized. This was a pretty pivotal time for me because I grew up playing sports. My dad was always really big into sports. My mom coached us as well. So I got to 7th grade, the point at which I could have played sports for the school, and the decision was pretty much, all right, we're not going to play sports anymore. And my parents didn't say no, you can't play, but we watched the video, the video I'm talking about with He's young brother, track star,
Track
has
star.
like, yeah, has like is it Andre? He's got the like college offers and all this
Yep.
stuff. So yeah, I decided not to play. That was 7th grade. So 8th grade, started going to a new school. Same type of thing. The coach was trying to get me to come play. Met with my dad, and they kind of just left it in my hands. Like, it's up to you whether or not you want to play, but it means that you would miss meetings. And so, of course, I didn't want to upset my parents. I didn't want to upset people at the hall. So I stopped playing. At the hall, for me, I always picked up on those like talks that would be like, why is Jesus compared to Melchizedek? Like like just the ones that seemed really academic, but that was the kind of stuff like the head knowledge was always there. I was on an academic team in 8th grade, and whenever a Bible topic or a Bible question would come up, they would look to me because I had some knowledge of the Bible topics and stuff. 9th grade, 10th grade. All right, 10th grade was big. I had world history, and we started talking about Lucy, the Australopithecus fossil.
Oh man, I remember learning about that. Yeah.
This is like precursor to Homo sapiens. And then it kind of hit me like, oh, there's evidence for at least creatures that resemble Homo sapiens prior to Homo sapiens. Always kind of like one of those things that kind of stuck with me, the proof of evolution, or at least Homo sapiens existing prior to 6,000 years ago. Then we started studying about the Epic of Gilgamesh, so the flood narrative, and all of these different flood mythologies within different cultures. And that was a big thing where I was like, oh, maybe the flood is a myth as well. But, we did a family study. We talked about it. I read all of the articles and basically just like, put it in the back of my mind.
Which we all do.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, completely normal response to it. When you're challenged with something, you either address it or you put it somewhere else.
Yeah.
11th grade. 11th grade, this is the point at which I got baptized. So the start of 11th grade, I started to see a lot of my friends at school going in 2 different directions. You had friends who were more focused on academics, college, that type of thing, going one way. Other friends who were focused on like doing things that we considered bad were doing something else. And I'm kind of in the middle, like, what am I going to do? I started having interest in girls who were not witnesses. Not that I didn't before, but it was like they were showing interest as well. And there was this, I wanted to date. 16-year-old, like I had this dilemma before me. This was how I posed it in my mind. Am I going to be a Jehovah's Witness and have a clean conscience? Or am I going to live how I see fit and feel guilty about it for the rest of my life? And I didn't want to feel that. So I said, all right, well, I got to start focusing on this more. So I started focusing on it more, trying to do more. I think that was, I'm not positive. So this was like 2011. I think that was the first time maybe that they announced the 30 hours for auxiliary pioneering. And I was super excited. I was like, I'm going to do it. I wasn't baptized, so I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Dang. Wow.
There was a witness girl that I was also kind of talking to. And so at that point, it was like, all right, well, let me talk to him about getting baptized and stuff. So we're on the way to the Kingdom Hall. I said my little prayer, like, I dedicate, because that's the first question they ask you is, did you dedicate your life in prayer? So I did. Talked to the elders. They said, yeah, cool, you can get baptized in May. Get baptized in May. So it's the summer before 12th grade. I was in the drama that summer, which was, it was a cool, fun experience. Senior year, trying to figure out what to do about college. So my parents were always pretty for me going to college. When my parents were younger, married, had kids, finances were always tough. Well, my mom decided to go back to college at a point, and education really helped them. I knew my parents did not oppose me going to college, to a 4-year university, as long as it was, you live at home, you're not living on campus. Senior year, I decided, and I did well in school. I did really well in school. and I was trying to do the right thing as a Jehovah's Witness. So I said, well, I'll do a tech school. So we went to the technical school, and I have nothing against technical schools. I hope it doesn't come out that way. But we met with the counselor. She kind of showed me like, all right, here's the different career paths and the median salaries and stuff if you were to go down one of these career paths. And one, I wasn't interested in any of them. So, what's the one that everybody looks at is like the radio tech.
Oh yeah, rad tech.
Yeah, because it was the one that you could
that much school
you could do for 2-3 years,
yeah,
and then you could come out and make a decent amount.
Yep.
So I thought, okay, well maybe I'll try to do that, but I had no interest in medical stuff, and I know that's not like a surgical tech or but I am squeamish. So probably a good idea that I didn't end up doing that. So I kind of had like a last minute change of heart where I said, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go for something else. And it was actually a brother who was an elder in our congregation who he became a witness in his 20s, college educated, worked in finance. And one of the things he suggested me look into is actuarial science. So actuaries, super boring explanation, but they basically determine frequency and severity of storms. And like they're for insurance companies. So they try to figure out, all right, if an insurance company is going to pay out, how much are they going to have to pay out and how often? And that's how like all the premiums for insurances and all that stuff is determined. So anyways, but they make a lot of money.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they get paid. So anyways, that summer, the convention is walk by faith, not by sight. And when I tell you it was like so anti higher education, the week after I had orientation at Georgia State. We live outside of Atlanta. Georgia State is about 35-40 minute drive. Yeah. So I had orientation. At orientation, there's a lot of discussion about tolerance, being like liberal, all of these like bad words.
As a witness, they are bad words.
As a witness, they're bad words.
We literally had a video that was like acceptance and tolerance.
And so the year before, I was in the drama playing Larry.
Oh man!
And all right, so in this drama, if there's a non-witness watching this, there was a drama, and there's a girl who's a witness. She's supposed to be dating a guy from school who is not a witness. That's a big no.
No, yeah.
And he basically tells her, no, he doesn't basically. These were like from this play. I was in this like play type thing where there's an audio, but I'm just mouthing the words. And he says, "You're in a cult. I'm more about like tolerance and things that are, when you're not a witness, don't sound like bad things. I mean, maybe to some, but they weren't negative things." Fast forward a year later, and I'm sitting in a college orientation where that's the thrust of the conversation is, look how diverse we are, and you can come here and be gay or bi or trans. My mom and I left that orientation because they separated the students from the parents, kind of had a similar thing for them, and we both left like, I don't think that this is the right thing for me to do. At least not right now. So I ended up taking a 1.5-year break between graduating high school, and I eventually did go to college. In that meantime, I pioneered. I trioneered, as they called it.
Oh no, I haven't heard that.
So yeah, I pioneered for, I made it like 9 months, but I wasn't getting my time consistently. I did not enjoy pioneering. I tried to work because I was also dating. I needed a job. So I was working at Best Buy, dating, and trying to pioneer. So August rolls around. I quit my job. The girl I was dating, we broke up, and I quit pioneering. Well,
and what year is this?
This was 2013, which is the year that we met. We had met earlier that year. So at that point, I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? I don't want to work in retail. So I'm going to go to college. And I'm not exactly sure what I want to do, but I got to find something where I'm not having to work nights and weekends. So I ended up going to Georgia State. It was one of the best decisions that I could have made. I made every meeting, never missed a meeting. If we had the reduced hours for auxiliary pioneering, I'd auxiliary pioneered every chance I could. But because I was at a 4-year college, I couldn't be a ministerial servant. They basically told me, you're doing everything right, but we worry about the example that sets for the congregation. So that was one thing. Another thing that was happening was I've always had an interest in other cultures and other ideas. And I took a couple of African American studies classes, and a lot of them dealt with repressed people and people dealing with injustices. And those were always things growing up that meant a lot to me. And as a Jehovah's Witness, you're not supposed to get involved in any kind of political movement, any kind of social movement. You're not even supposed to voice an opinion. So it's not just like getting involved, it's not voicing opinions. So
you are to remain neutral in all matters political.
So 2014, 2015 rolls around, and all of the stuff happens in Ferguson, Missouri with Michael Brown. And I could not just idly say, I don't have an opinion about this. I had an opinion. I had a strong opinion, and it hurt. And I'm seeing people who are my friends, who I've grown up with, who are hurting over this and are asking me, hey, are you gonna come out here with us? And I basically have to tell them, no, I'm not.
Neutral.
I'm neutral. And I had a friend he said, all right, yeah, maybe God will solve all of this, but does that mean that we can't do anything now? And I couldn't really respond. I mean, what do I say? Because we had benefited. Yeah, everything's not perfect, but if the civil rights movement hadn't happened, if the women's suffrage movement and women's movements and all of these things hadn't happened, where would we be? Would we even be able to date, to marry? So he had a good point. So yeah, that always affected me, and it kind of comes back into play in our awakening process and everything. But so at this point, 2015, the end of 2015 is when Taylor and I start to date. So our paths converge. So I'll pass it over to Taylor now so she can kind of tell her side of the story up to that point, and then we'll come back together.
Okay. So rewind.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yeah. So my mom got baptized. I'm pretty sure she got baptized while she was pregnant with me. My dad, he wasn't opposed, but he wasn't really going to meetings and stuff like that when I was younger. My oldest brother got to experience birthdays and stuff until he was like 5 or 6, I think. When my mom was in it, she was in it. So we were all in it. We went to every meeting. We sat there. We studied before all the meetings. We did not leave early. My dad, he got baptized, I think I was maybe 12 or 13. To this day, I'm really not sure what made him decide to just start doing it. I don't know if it was just pressure from the congregation. I'm not really sure.
And your mom did not have other family who were witnesses?
Yeah, no.
Right?
She came in through a friend of the family that they had known for a long time. My dad knew them growing up. My mom grew up Baptist, and she was like very into being Baptist. Growing up, one of my closest friends was Mormon. And I was 6 or 7 when we met, and we were best friends all throughout school. I say best friends, but we weren't really allowed to hang out. When we were really little, we lived in the same neighborhood, so my parents would let me go over to her house for like an hour or so, things like that, but it was still seen as, she's not a Jehovah's Witness. So it doesn't matter how sweet and kind your family is, you're not supposed to hang out with non-witnesses. And that was always really hard for me. I'm like naturally introverted. It was hard to be able to get to know people to a point. And that was something that was very different in our childhoods, because Micah's family, he hung out with people from the neighborhood and hung out with people from school, Of course, his parents wanted them to be good people, know. But
my parents were not the typical Jehovah's Witness parents of you can only hang out with people from the congregation. They were, my best friends were in the neighborhood, and those relationships and friendships were affected, but they were more affected by what I was hearing at the Kingdom Hall than what my parents were telling me or saying.
Yeah. So my brothers, they had friends who were not witnesses that they would hang out with on occasion, but pretty much the same experience. They weren't allowed to really see them for a long time or often outside of school. Then when I was maybe 11, 12, my brothers kind of started getting into like different things that were not okay in witness culture. The way my family was raised, very focused on what other people think of you, unfortunately. So that really I feel like it took a huge toll on my family, with my brothers being disfellowshipped and reproved, disfellowshipped, reproved. And as the only girl, youngest girl, I felt like I had to be perfect.
Can you talk about what disfellowshipping is?
Oh, yes. Okay, so that's a whole thing on its own.
Yeah, just like a...
Okay, so quickly, disfellowshipping is basically a shunning from the congregation. They put you on the outskirts. People, they announce you at the Kingdom Hall to let everybody know this person basically has done something wrong that they need everybody to know. So nobody talks to you. You don't get invited places. And specifically, this isn't everybody's experience, but for my family, it's not just, they don't invite that one person. A lot of times that family is kind of treated funny, because it's kind of like, what's going on in that house to where that happened.
Yeah. And even within a family, if you have a family and everyone's baptized, and one of the brothers, like in Taylor's example, one of her brothers who was an adult gets disfellowshipped, the rest of the family is expected to not speak to them, to not hang out with them, to not have a meal with them.
Yeah.
Basically cut off all contact. That's unnecessary.
Yeah, and that's what I think the brothers had told us at the time, was basically trying not to do anything social with that person or anything unnecessary, like you said. So yeah, that takes a toll. That takes a toll. I have 3 older brothers. We're all a couple of years apart, but we all pretty much grew up close to each other. I've always looked up to them, and to a point, I didn't really understand what the issue was. But as I got older, it became more evident that I was expected to do better for the family. So I kind of hit that same crossroads as you. Was I going to do whatever I want? At that point, I didn't even know what I wanted. Or am I going to do what I'm supposed to? And so that's what I did. I got baptized when I was 14. I wanted to get baptized. I felt like I believed in it. I don't think I was ready. I feel like I mainly did it for other people. You do it because you're 14 and people are kind of like, oh, your friends are getting baptized. When are you going to do it?
Next, right?
Exactly. So I got baptized. I got reproved the same year. So I got reproved for smoking the hashish.
How many times did you do this?
I don't know. Maybe twice.
Okay.
But the issue, and they told me this in the meeting that we had. So when you get reproved, for those who don't know what that means, it's kind of like a lighter version of disfellowshipping. They announce you in the congregation, but it's kind of like you don't have privileges, but people will still talk to you.
Yeah, like, so part of the meetings, which is what they call like services, is audience participation, or you may go up on stage and do like a demonstration with another person. And if you've been reproved, that's taken away. You're not supposed to speak. If you're a male, you may have like passing the microphone, things like that can be taken away from you. There's 2 types too. There's one where it's done privately, where people don't know.
Yeah.
So, like, the only people who know are the elders, who are the guys in the congregation who make all the decisions.
Yes.
There's no pastor. There's a body. They make the decisions. It's private. People don't.
The other people in the congregation don't know, but the elders know.
Yeah. Now, they could know. It's not like if they just kind of pay attention to things.
Yeah.
Especially for men.
Yeah. So they told. So.
And then there's public where they announce it and say,
Taylor Livingston has been reproved, like that.
And then they walk off all solemn.
Yeah, it's awkward as hell. But anyways, so they told me in my meeting for my judicial committee is what they called it. Basically, they were like, you shouldn't have done this, whatever. But the issue that we're having is that other people know about it. So I remember there was literally a point where he was like, does anybody else know about it? And I knew. I was like, I could lie right now and say, no, nobody else really knows about it. But I felt so guilty. And I just felt so bad. I mean, I remember the second time I smoked weed, I was like, I prayed. Oh God, this is so terrible. I was crying and praying to get caught because I felt so bad.
And it happened. So what's that tell you?
God is real. No. But yeah, so I knew at that point. So I just told him, I was like, this person knows, my brothers knew because we were together. Yeah. At that point, it was a wrap, and they said I was going to be publicly reproved because everybody knew about it. So I decided I was going to try to be good. I was going to try to be good because I felt like it wasn't fun to be sad and living. I wasn't living a double life. I just felt like I was a different person inside than I could be outside. So I was going to try to really be a good Jehovah's Witness Taylor. I met new friends, and the pioneers in the congregation really took me under their wing. So I was going out. I wasn't pioneering yet, but I was going out in service a lot.
Had you graduated at that point?
No, I was still in high school, and all my friends, I made a bunch of new friends through service, had a boyfriend, all this stuff. I was feeling good about myself. I graduated, and that's when things kind of got weird because I was going out in service more and more and more, and the more I was hanging out with the pioneers, the more I felt like there was a lot of judgment. The pioneers, for those who don't know, they're supposed to be the cream of the crop in the congregation. They are, go ahead.
And it used to be that they spent 70 hours a month in some, knocking on doors in the ministry.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and they're supposed to be, zealous and kind. They're supposed to be good people in the congregation. And I'm not saying the pioneers were not, because there were definitely those who were great. But I just felt like there were a lot who had a lot of not very nice things to say, judgmental things to say, racist things to say. And that really, really, really bothered me. Let's rewind. High school. I don't know what I'm going to do for school. I don't have a clue. I did fairly well in school, but higher education is discouraged.
Didn't you take some college classes in high school?
Yeah, I did nursing. I did an internship at a local small hospital for 2 years, a year and a half. And really, and if you don't know, those who know, but if you don't know, if you're a Jehovah's Witness and you're a female, they're going to be like nursing, honestly. You're going to be a nurse.
And nursing is a great career.
Nursing is a great career. But it's
But it is
those are your options.
Yeah, if you're going to school, it's a 2-year nursing degree with the expectation that you're also going to pioneer while in school and after you graduate.
So that's what I did. Honestly, my parents didn't feel one way or another about school, but they weren't going to be able to pay for it. I put myself through school. I went to Athens Tech, and that was awful. I say awful. Nothing wrong with the school. I say awful because I was pioneering, so I was doing 70 hours a month. I was working like a dog, crazy hours. I was working at Ruby Tuesday. I would wake up at 5 in the morning, 5:30. Get to early morning service. A lot of people didn't do early morning near me, so I would drive 30, 45 minutes to meet people in Snellville for early morning service, then drive 30 minutes back to meet the regular group for service at 9.
Oh, and Taylor was a good witness too. Like
Oh yeah, I was
she
in
didn't
it.
start her time when she left the house. Or
No.
it was by the book. It was like, I'm not counting time until I talk to somebody.
Yes.
So, if you're having to wait at somebody's house because they're not dressed yet, it's not counting. That clock's not ticking.
Yeah. So it was rough. Got to the service at 9. Sometimes I would be able to go out until 12 because I would have a class all the way in Athens, which was about an hour away. I'd have a class at like 1 or 2, so I'd have to leave. I would go to school in my field service clothes, go to my class for a couple of hours. Sometimes I would have just like an hour or 2 between classes, so I would stay there. Then I would have a class at 7, finish my class, go do my shift at Ruby Tuesday at 9. Stuff like that. It was terrible. Obviously, I got burned out real quick. It was just way too much. And even at that point, felt like it was not enough. I was getting pulled in every direction. I wasn't doing well in school. I just wasn't able to split my time evenly. I was having flare-ups with my eczema from stress. I was fainting in school, probably from stress. All this crazy stuff was going on. Then I'm encouraged from the congregation that of all these things to let go, I need, instead of let go my free service that I'm, they were like, have you thought about letting go of school? So at first it sounds great. I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe I do need to do this for Jehovah. I'll give it some time. And honestly, I'm tired as hell. Sure, let's do it. Then I did it and got kicked off the pioneer list the month after I dropped out of school. And that was a dark time. That was a dark time because I gave my all. I felt like I gave my all to school when I could, gave my all to pioneering when I could. I can't give my all to Ruby Tuesday, but I was trying.
You gave that little bit that was left to
I was trying. And then it was all for nothing. It just felt like, and they had all of a sudden cracked down, my local congregation, on people making their hours. There had been pioneers in that congregation that hadn't made their hours ever, had been pioneering for, I'm not saying ever like, once or twice, couple months. No, I'm talking you've been pioneering for 20 years and you've made your hours maybe like 3 of those years ever. So me, my first year, I come up short on my time. Not by a lot either. I don't know. I can't remember how many hours, but it wasn't a lot. And me and a friend of mine getting kicked off the list. We cried. I remember I ran to the bathroom and was like dry heaving and crying. It was terrible. So yeah, here I am. I don't have an education because even at this point, I was still in the mindset of it's not Jehovah's fault. It's not, it's me. I failed. I failed to put him first for so long because I was in school. So this is what I get. And then I failed to make my hours. So I have nobody to blame but me. Yeah. Then I met Mike.
Yeah. So that was basically the point at which we started dating. I guess that was September of that year, maybe October.
Yeah.
Because I was over at one of the elders' houses, and I can't remember if that was the night, but you texted or called, and he and I talked about it at length. And I also remember it was like it was like a special moon. You remember that?
Yeah, blood moon.
We could probably look back and tell you what date that was based on that. So yeah, at that point we started dating. We had known each other for a few years.
We had mutual friends. We weren't in the same circles, but it was like adjacent. Like friends of friends, kind of hanging out and stuff. And Micah was very direct. I'm going to tell y'all a brief story.
Well, yeah.
He was just straight up. He was like, I think we'd be good together, and I'm interested. I was like, all right.
And I had just gone through something where I basically told someone, hey, I would like to have a family. I'd like to have kids one day. And they were basically like, well, I'm not having kids, which I'm glad they told me that. But I was like, well, I'm not going to develop feelings for somebody who doesn't want those things. So yeah, I told Taylor pretty early on, like, I would like to eventually have children. And again, that's another thing as a witness that it's not, I feel like it's maybe not as frowned upon now.
No, not
but
really.
it was very frowned upon. And
I used to tell people. I used to tell people. We have 2 children of our own now. And I'm so sorry if you're watching this and I've ever told you don't have kids. The line you hear is like, why would you ever want to bring a child into this wicked system of things?
That's going to take away from what you could be doing for God. Right. Your focus is shifting, which, yeah, your focus does shift. But to pretend that raising children is not a more important thing than serving a religion. Yeah, so I was direct with Taylor, though. So at that point, we started dating.
We got married fairly soon after that. For Jehovah's Witnesses, it's really frowned upon to date for a long time.
Yep.
For marriage. We started dating in 2015.
I'm still in college at this point.
Yes. I graduated 2013. So
from high school.
From high school. Dropped out of college. We started dating 2015. We had originally planned on getting married in 2017, but we got in trouble.
Yep. So we were dating. We had been dating for, I don't know, maybe 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, no sexual contact is allowed. We did not have intercourse. We did not even really come close to having intercourse. But it was too far for Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
So we ran to the elders and said, this is what we've done.
We were crying. Remember we were driving on 285. It was 285?
20. Coming out of the city.
Crying. Looking at each other in the window because we were like, we go get this fellowship.
Yeah. I drove straight to an elder's house. It was the elder that I was super close with. Drove straight to his house. Told him, we've messed up. Go through this whole thing. I get reproved.
Publicly.
So this is, no, not publicly. I get privately reproved.
Privately.
But this is an example of how, you're told there's all this unity. Everything's handled the same way. We were handled in 2 different ways. We did the exact same thing.
What you're supposed to do, they did what they were supposed to do. Sure. This is nothing against the people, the elders themselves as people. We just want to make that clear because
Yeah. But the elders in my congregation felt that, okay, we have to take this action. You can't comment. You can't do stuff around the congregation. And I did a ton of that. That was very important to me to help in the congregation. Active. We did the accounts, taking up the collections at the end of the meeting, counting everything, depositing it in the bank. They were giving me more stuff to do. So
when you're reproved, even if it's private, you don't have those, they call them privileges.
Yeah, all this stuff kind of goes away and it kind of resets even. Any kind of progress you've made kind of resets and you got to start back from the beginning and kind of work your way back through regaining privileges and getting more. Before going to college, I was on assemblies, conventions, multiple things like that. They found out I was in college. No more. I had one where the brother, I guess he called our congregation. And maybe our congregation was a bit more like open-minded because, they would check with the coordinator and stuff to say, hey, can we use this brother on an assembly or whatever? Mm-hmm. And they said, yeah. So then I'm talking to the brother whose part it is. And I'm telling him, he's like, oh, well, at that point, it's too late because he's already asked me to do it. And we're practicing the demonstration and stuff that we're going to do at an assembly.
It's not even like, there's nothing wrong with living on campus anyway. But you're living at home.
I was going 2 days a week.
It's just insane.
I was going 2 days a week.
Absolutely insane.
We get reproved and we're like, all right, we didn't get disfellowshipped. We've got to get married. So this was like April and we start planning a wedding to get married in September.
Yes. So again, dating 2015. We had planned to get married in 2017, but we got reproved and we felt like we couldn't wait. And the brothers encouraged us basically that you need to hurry up and get married. So we decided to get married in September of 2016.
Yep. So we get married. We're at the meetings, pretty involved in the congregation. You're doing some auxiliary pioneering.
Yeah, I still had that guilt. So
yeah, you still had that for
I
sure.
was trying to work my way up through lots of pushing from the congregation to Pioneer.
I graduate college, start looking for a job.
People are throwing around SKE.
Oh, SK. Yeah, you know, everybody's setting goals for you, telling, well, not everybody, don't let me say everybody, a lot of people. And I didn't have that desire. Like I said earlier, I wanted to have kids. I mean, I didn't want kids immediately, but thankfully I was able to find a decent job, in large part to having a college education. Once I got a full-time job and we had good health insurance, and we were just kind of talking about it. I mean, so when we got married, I was 22, you were 21. We got pregnant in 2018. Our son was born in 2019. Yep. So let's see, you were 24. I was 25. Yeah, our son is born in 2019. And that is where, going back to what I said earlier, life change happens. A lot of thoughts, a lot of like mental.
And that really changes. Started when I was pregnant, for you especially.
Absolutely.
Lots of fear and...
Yeah.
Those of you who don't know, Jehovah's Witnesses do not accept blood transfusions. There are some people who accept, like, they get really specific as far as platelets and fragments and all that kind of stuff. Fractions. Yeah. But bottom line is, I'm pregnant. I'm also anemic. If something happens with a baby during labor, before, whatever, will the baby needs blood or I need blood, would you accept it? And the answer is supposed to be no, even if it means the death of you or your child, and your child.
Yeah, and that was what we were telling the doctors. I was mortified. Yeah. I was, oh my goodness, it scared me so bad. And it really started this process of, this doesn't sound right. Would a loving God want me to let my wife die over blood? And you can get into the specifics of why Jehovah's Witnesses reject blood transfusions. They could change this teaching right now and people would not question it.
Yeah.
They would just go along with it. It's not this clear-cut thing in the Bible. Even though people have died.
Lots of people have died.
If God in the Bible says that a king is wicked for allowing his or killing his children, and I'm thinking, so I should let my child die? I should let my wife die rather than, even if it is wrong, rather than one prohibited act that I can then use my entire life, and my child can use their entire life, my wife can use her entire life to make up for it. No, they need to die because they'll be resurrected. And that's when the cognitive dissonance hit, where paradise didn't seem like a reality to me. A God wanting me to let my child die does not sound loving to me. And then I start thinking more, and our child is born, everything goes well. Thankfully, everything goes really well with,
there's no, issues.
But then I'm holding this child, and I'm thinking, I want to tell this little boy that I love him and I am always going to be here for him no matter what. And yet, I can't, every time I tell him that, I can't think of anything but, what if he gets disfellowshipped? Am I not going to be there? What if he's gay? Am I not going to go to his wedding? What if? And
at the time, let me just say that at the time, we had a newborn baby. He wasn't sleeping. We were exhausted. Micah, again, new full-time job. Wait, were you?
I had been there about a year and a half.
I'm home with the baby. So we are exhausted. We're stressed to the max. And I knew something was going on with Micah, more so emotionally, I think, because
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
He does.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
It is. If I wake up in the morning, Taylor's like, what's wrong?
Yeah, you can tell. So at that point, I knew things were off. But again, things were off with me as well. We were exhausted, new baby, job, pressure, we're young parents.
People at the Kingdom Hall, when you have a baby, I mean, look, if you have a baby and you've been to the Kingdom Hall, you know. But it is, man.
I mean, the meetings are at 7:30.
The social pressure, the baby is crying, people are not thoughtful of boundaries. Everybody wants to tell you how to parent. Everybody, it's just...
So going to meetings, it's supposed to be encouraging. I was trying to be like, yes, it's very encouraging and we should go. But it was
and I was telling
rough.
Taylor, I'm the kind of person who, I wanted to get to the meetings early. During the meeting, you know, yeah, I'm going to do my part and whatever. After the meeting, I want to stay late and talk. Because to me, that was the encouraging part, was having friends, getting to see them.
I'm the opposite because...
Yeah, she was like, we're going for the meeting.
Yeah, I have a lot of social anxiety. I always have. And for me, going early, especially because it was a new congregation, we just got married, I came to his like home congregation. So I didn't know most of these people. I knew some of them, like we hung out and stuff, but it wasn't enough for me to feel comfortable. So for me, I just wanted to, especially with, again, newborn baby.
A newborn baby, yeah. Who, oh my goodness, Kingdom Hall's 30 minutes away. He cries.
Scream the entire
time we're in the car.
Scratch, scream, just, it was awful. So to me, I'm like, I just want to get in and fulfill my obligation to Jehovah and get out. So I want to get in with my child when it is 7:29 and leave as soon as amen hits. So I can, say I did it, feel good about myself, and be done. Same thing with field service.
Yeah, and I'm trying to see my boys.
Exactly. Y'all are trying to hang out and talk, and I'm like, let's go. Let's go. It's almost 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Yeah. He was probably 3 months old when we started taking him to the meetings, and we did it for about 7 months, and then COVID. Yeah, so COVID hits. We're home, and we're meeting in a small Bible study group. Like, we're meeting with our field service group. So there's like 15 of us meeting. So yeah, it really was. It was a lot better. There were like 15 of us, and the brother who gave our wedding talk, he's the head of our service group. We're super close with him. I love him. If he ever watches this, I love you. Like, we love you so much. My parents are there too. And it was cool.
Everything is on Zoom. I don't know if we said that.
Everything's on Zoom. So this is early. So we're doing it just small group. And you feel it's like it matters. You're in a group where it's small and it matters. And it's people you love about, especially early COVID when everything is isolated. And, we loved being at home, but that's who we are. We like our quiet time. And then it starts going to the full scale congregation on Zoom. And
for those who don't know, all congregations all around the world are different sizes. Our congregation was like 100+ people.
Oh, it was 100 and I think at the start of COVID it was probably 160,
and
which
that's
is a
just
huge
publishers.
Congregation.
Yeah. So it was a lot. You go from a service group of maybe 4 families, if that, to 200 people.
Yeah. Every other meeting, I was either doing the sound, and I wasn't a servant. And a big reason for that was field service. I had never liked field service, and didn't really go a whole lot. It was that's just the reality. I did not like field service, and it felt like a waste of time when I was pioneering. It felt like a waste of time, like a waste of resources. My parents were providing financially for me to pioneer, and I felt like I was wasting their money.
I felt like any joy we got out of field service came from the relief of fulfilling your obligation. Like, I did it. Okay,
and that's
I did
how
my
Taylor
service
would feel.
time.
We go out in service, and she'd be like, "All right, I feel good.
All right, I feel good. I did
guilt.
it. I don't have to do it for another 7 days."
Me, on the other hand, I'd go out in service and come home, and I'm like, that was terrible. That was the worst thing in the world.
And the only time I feel like service was enjoyable is when you're not really doing service, when you're hanging out with your friends.
Hanging out with friends. Yep.
Talking between houses or whatever. It's not...
Yeah. So we're still pretty involved. I mean, we're
giving talks.
We're giving talks. early Zoom too. They found a few brothers who they felt like, all right, you know how to use technology, you know how to do computers, whatever. I built my PC like right before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So this is 2020. Then the summer of 2020 happens. And this is George Floyd. All of the protests surrounding it. We have the convention that summer as well that we're trying to watch at home. And there's parts of it where I'm seeing stuff and I'm like, that doesn't seem right. That's misogynistic. And then Donald Trump is,
and there's this thing
is up for election or re-election.
And there's this thing that we touched on a second ago, but you have an opinion.
You have an opinion.
You have an opinion. You can choose to silence it if that's what you want to do, but that opinion is there. And up until the point of having our child, we had opinions about things, and we had discussed things that we kind of felt one way or another about it, maybe a little bit different from what we were taught at the Kingdom Hall.
We're keeping our opinion to ourselves. And really, I say that, but that same brother who I talked about before, who gave our wedding talk and everything, one day he called me and we're talking. I'm telling him, like, man, I'm discouraged. I have doubts. All of the things happening with racial injustice are bothering me. There's all of this stuff, and he's telling me it's bothering me too. And we talk about it.
Which that is rare.
That is really
for an elder to be honest about his own opinions on things and his own struggles. Typically, what happens is if Micah had expressed his doubts to whomever, then the next mode of action would have been counsel, encourage through the Bible, encourage through, hold fast. At least
God's going to correct it all.
Right.
Be patient. Have a waiting attitude.
Right. You're not going to hear, yeah, this does suck. That's not typically what you hear.
Yeah. And because this is a black man who has had life experiences and works in corporate America, where he is one of the few black men within his job who is in a leadership role. And so even within his company, they're asking him things about like
the Brown experience.
Yeah, and about like, what's your interpretation of privilege and, what are your ideas? So he's having to confront these things as well. And he can't just say, well, I don't think it's this. Like, that's not true either. He came by the house one day, we talked at length, and I'm telling him I'm discouraged. I have doubts. And he's saying we all kind of have some of these doubts, even on the elder body. A lot of us, at times, things may happen and they say, I don't understand why this is happening, or I don't understand why this is the direction we're getting. So, I mean, he was very loving, understanding. He's a great guy. They meet with us again, kind of ask us how we're doing. And we tell them, like, I mean, rough, In our minds, that's how it kind of was. So this is 2020. And at this point, my questioning it goes from, all right, blood, disfellowshipping, education, homosexuality, politics, massage. It's like the list is just growing and growing and growing.
Meanwhile, I'm like, it's okay, and what's weird is that we agreed. Like, I don't think there was any point where Micah was like, I have issues with this and this. And I was like, well, I don't have issues with, no.
Yeah, there was a lot of it that you felt the same.
But I just felt like, we'll tell our kids what we want to tell our kids, you know.
And so that was kind of our agreement. Late 2020, I guess, I told Taylor, I don't believe this anymore. And I never read anything apostate. I did start to read more science explanations and stuff so I could have an understanding of, I've been told this is what evolution is, and I was taught like a slight version of it in school. Let me read and see, does this actually make sense, or does it make sense to believe that God created Homo sapiens as Jehovah's Witnesses teach? And it led me to conclude that I believed evolution is true. Okay, well, can you be a Jehovah's Witness and believe in evolution? I don't know. I mean, I can't speak it, because if I tell people that I believe it and it seems like I'm promoting it, I can be shunned for it. So I tell Taylor, and it's basically we keep it between us for a while. Yeah. But I wear my heart on my sleeve. They said it's my fault. It's my fault. So Anyways, my mom notices. She's like, something's going on. My best friend notices. So I tell him, like, I've got major doubts. And at this point, I'm an atheist.
Which I did not know at the time. I knew that there were doubts.
There was one thing I forgot. We were trying to figure out a name for our child. My name is Micah. My brothers also have biblical names. At that point, I still believed. So we wanted to give our child a biblical name. So I started reading the story of Judah. And I'm reading it. And I read it straight from the Bible. And I read it. I think I have a good grasp on the story, kind of the lessons, the morals there. And then I read what's published on the online library, the Watchtower online library, Jehovah's Witnesses resource that houses all of their publications online. And it says a completely different thing than my take from it. So I'm thinking, why is that? That's kind of weird. And so I just start reading more about the book of Genesis and what historians say. And, oh man, I don't have a Bible with me right now. But in the back of the Bible that Jehovah's Witnesses use, the New World Translation, this is like my favorite thing to look at as a kid. There's this list and it shows who wrote this book of the Bible. So who wrote Genesis, who wrote Exodus, Leviticus, and it goes through every book of the Bible, when it was written, where they wrote it, all this stuff. And I knew a lot of these things from the New World Translation. So I started reading about Genesis. And when historians who study this and study the language that it was written in, and they study the stories and all of this stuff, and when they say it's written, and it's different, I'm like, hold on, wait, it doesn't make sense. One of these is wrong. Let me try to read and get a better understanding. So I'm reading all of this stuff. I'm listening to all of these historians, Bible historians, archaeologists, and I realized that so many of the things we were taught are not backed up by research.
Evidence.
It's not backed up by evidence. Some of the language that's used could not have been written at this time.
Yeah.
It had to have been written later, like for the New Testament portions where they say, well, that was either written in Hebrew or Aramaic and then translated to Greek. Well, there's phrases that are used that do not translate from Hebrew to Greek. They used a Greek phrase. Learning about Paul having not written all of the letters that are attributed to Paul. I've been told the Bible is inerrant. The Bible is scientifically correct. It is historically correct. There are no flaws. There are no contradictions. And then I come to realize, oh no, this is not correct at all. And you can still believe in God and believe that the Bible has contradictions, believe that the Bible has errors historically or scientifically. You can still be a Christian, believe in God. As a Jehovah's Witness, no. Not if you're going to voice that opinion to other people. So I really begin like a full deconstruction of my beliefs, trying to figure out, what do I want to hold on to? What do I think makes sense? What do I want to get rid of? And basically come to the conclusion, it's impossible for me to know whether or not God exists. In the absence of what I consider good evidence, I cannot believe something. What matters to me is if something's true. If it's not true, I don't want to believe it. If it is true, I do want to believe it. So, yeah, I kind of go through this period of, and people ask me, do you believe in God? Like Taylor will talk, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's like, the more I think about it, it's no, I don't. Especially not this omnipotent, omnibenevolent God that I've been taught to believe. It doesn't make sense. And it's thoughts that you have as a child growing up. I can't explain suffering.
Yeah.
And I know for some people that's not a big issue for them, but if God is loving, why does he allow these things to happen? Yeah. If God is powerful, why does he allow these things to happen? If God is all-knowing, are we not predestined? Or do we have free will?
And Michael would tell me certain things that he felt, or not even, he never tried to convince me. Never. He never would tell me stuff that he read or tell me nothing. I knew something was going on with him, and I knew he had doubts. A little bit later down the road, I think I just straight up asked you if you believed in God, and I already knew the answer was no, which was tough and everything. But we would just talk about stuff. That's how we've always been. We have got good communication. So,
and you were very open and honest. Like, we talked about, all right, how are we going to handle our children, like teaching them? And we agreed, okay, this is what mommy believes. This is what daddy believes. We're not going to push them either way. It's, this is why I believe it.
Because regardless, we felt like, our children, they're going to grow up to be who they're going to grow up to be. And we wanted them to have the option to figure out what it is that they believe in. So yeah, it's okay for them to know what dad believes is different or what mom believes is different.
Yeah. And so, yeah, at that point, there are things that Jehovah's Witnesses teach that you don't believe.
Yeah.
So this is 2021.
Yes.
You don't believe, but you are still trying to make it work.
Yep.
You're still calling into all of the meetings.
Yep.
I'm having to listen to them.
Painfully. You were a good sport. You tried.
I tried, but
sometimes.
There were times that it would just make me mad.
Anytime there was a talk about education,
yep,
demonizing it,
calling it satanic propaganda.
I mean, come on.
Talking about evolution as if people who hold to evolution being true, it's only because they haven't considered the facts. Like, that's the reason. If only they would consider the facts, they would be a Jehovah's Witness. That's what you're being told. And yeah, it's just progressively ticking me off. Ooh. So, can I go in reverse real quick?
Yeah.
2021, I start therapy.
Oh, yes, we got to talk about therapy.
Okay, I can do it real quick. I start therapy, and I know that the religion is one of these things stressing me out, but I argue, even at this point where I don't believe it, I argue whether or not to talk to the therapist about it, and I say, all right, if therapy is going to work, I got to talk about these things. Right. So I bring it up, we talk about it. I realize I'm not crazy because I haven't read anything apostate. I haven't read anything critical of Jehovah's Witnesses, right. But to express, hey, I just want to know whether or not God exists. And to have somebody say, yeah, me too.
Right.
And she was a Christian. So this is not a person who's like trying to get me to be an atheist or leave Jehovah's Witnesses. She just wants me to be honest with myself about how I feel. And it was like, wow, I'm not crazy. Therapist. Yeah. As I'm dealing with these things, I'm enjoying work more. The things that I thought were stressing me out are not stressing me out to that same extent. Taylor also begins therapy.
I began therapy. I had a lot of anxiety, as y'all know.
We both had childhood trauma.
Yep. And then this added layer of, they call it an unbelieving mate. So the idea of me growing up, being a Jehovah's Witness, trying to raise our children to figure out what they believe while my husband did not believe in it was horrifying, daunting. I don't want him to die. I don't want our kids to die. So basically, I just brought it up to the therapist. Like, she's like, what's going on? Because I felt anger wasn't even it was like, I'm scared. She's like, why are you scared? I'm like, if he's not a witness anymore, I don't know who he is. He's going to be a bad person. You have all these questions and worries that come into play. And she was basically like, has any of it happened? No. But it's probably going to happen. No, she's like, has any of it happened? Do you have any reason to believe it's going to happen? That he's going to diverge into this terrible person? No, I don't have any reason to believe. Then don't worry about it unless it happens. It's like, okay. She was like, trust who he is. Do you trust the person that you married to be his authentic self? Like, yeah. All right. And so that's what we did. Yeah. We just kept being ourselves, being honest with each other about our feelings and opinions about things. So that was mid-2021. Yep.
And so I guess the next big thing that happened,
my brother passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. My brother died suddenly. He was 32. And it destroyed me. Yeah. for multiple reasons. I'd always been really close to my brother. He was my second oldest brother, like my middle brother. We had always been really close as kids. Then as we got older, like I told you, there was a time when my brothers were getting into trouble, and getting disfellowshipped and stuff. So it was putting us at odds and making our relationships kind of weird and strained. I'm trying to be good Christian, good Jehovah's Witness Taylor, and I am hard shunning. Okay, we are not talking. I'm talking about he got married and I did not go to the wedding, which awful.
Our nephew was born.
These are the biggest regrets of my life, still to this day. I won't get that time back. There's nothing I can do to ever get that time back. And I did what I was supposed to be doing in the eyes of the Jehovah's Witness doctrines and the community. I did. Go ahead.
And when he died, he had been reinstated at that point. He was doing what he was supposed to be doing too. Like he was finally at a point where he was married. He had 2 kids, a third on the way, and he suddenly passes away. It's like everything.
I was pregnant with our second.
Yeah, we were about to have children like 2 months apart.
I think we had told him.
We told him the day before.
Yeah.
That we were having a child as well. So Taylor was going to be pregnant at the same time as his wife, and he was over the moon. And I remember the jokes he made. And yeah, that was the last time we talked to him. Taylor's mom called me. We had put the kids to bed. She was in our room painting. And she was talking about her brother. And I get a text from her mom saying there's been a car accident. We're not sure what's going on, but we're trying to figure out what's happening. So Taylor's painting, and I didn't tell her anything at the time. Her mom asked me not to until they knew what was going on. I go down to our garage to get Taylor's phone out of the car. Her mom calls me and says he's gone. I came upstairs and I sat down and I told her, like, I need to tell you something serious. And I told her brother had passed away.
And I did not believe it at first.
No.
I didn't believe it. And Micah went downstairs to get my phone, and I was sitting in our office, and I was looking through messages because 5th time social anxiety. Okay, so I just get really anxious when it comes to responding to things. So sometimes it might take me a couple days. And I was like, oh man, I need to respond to Gary. I hadn't talked to him in a day or so. I need to respond to, because you came back out and you were like, I think you just said Garrett passed away. And I was like, that's not funny. Don't say that.
And I don't joke.
Serious.
I don't joke like that.
No, he does not joke like that. So I think I knew at that point it was like anger. It was like, no, he's not. What are you talking about? Anyways, that night was terrible. Other than sadness, obvious sadness. I was mad because if you knew Garrett, if you knew how sweet and silly, and he's just a great guy. Great dad. He's a great person. And for him to die suddenly, when I felt like his life, he had a wife, he had the things that he wanted. And then for it to end so abruptly, it just didn't make any sense to me. It didn't make any sense. And like I said before, it was layers. Because I also felt sad that he had lived this life. He died at 32. And I didn't feel like he lived his life to the fullest in a way. And I mean, like, I don't mean doing crazy stuff. I mean, he was really talented in art, music. He was a really creative person. And as Jehovah's Witnesses, somebody may say that this is not true. Oh, they don't discourage creativity. If my brother wanted to be a famous musician, which he did, he wanted to do music as a career, it was discouraged. If he wanted to be an artist in any other respect, for a career, it was discouraged. So knowing that my brother at 32 passed away and wasn't able to freely explore those things without guilt or shame or that very real discouragement made me so angry and sad. And I don't feel like it was a waste of life. I don't feel that way at all. But I feel he deserved more. He deserved more.
Yeah.
And I won't ever get that back. Those years, I mean, he was disfellowshipped twice. Both of those times, it's not, when people are disfellowshipped, it's not for like a month or two. It's typically years.
Yeah.
So those are years you don't get back. Pivotal years. So I felt like if all this is true, which I felt like it was, then it should make sense. When I just think about it logically, it should make sense. And I felt like that was the first time that it really hit me again, a catalyst, some major change. That was the first time it really hit me that, wait a minute, something doesn't make sense. Because again, with suffering, if there is a loving God, why would he let my brother die? Even if, okay, you're going to say God didn't kill your brother. He is, okay, sure. Idle. He's idle to the fact that my brother died because of the world that we live in. Why would that be okay? To prove a point to the angels?
Yeah, and it's kind of this thing of like, all right, is failure to stop suffering any better than causing suffering? And the way that I think about it, like when I was a kid, so if you're from Georgia, you know Stone Mountain. And Stone Mountain has this one side that's like a pretty steep fall. And I had like a cousin or somebody. I have a really large family. But I had a cousin or somebody who fell off the mountain at some point and died. So I had this. Yeah, I know, right? So I had this fear of like falling off of a mountain. And this did not happen in my life. This happened years ago. I don't even know who the person was. I might just be making this stuff up.
This didn't happen, y'all.
But the analogy will hold. All right. But I always thought if I'm standing on the edge of a mountain and somebody sees me about to fall and they have the power, they have the ability to stop me from falling. All they have to do is just reach out and grab. Even that, I mean, for them to reach out and grab is nothing. If they don't reach out and grab me versus if they push me off, are they really in a better spot morally because they didn't push me? Just because they're the one who didn't push me, does that mean they're a better person than somebody who, oh, I see you falling and I'm just going to let you fall to your death?
Right.
I didn't cause you to fall. I mean, look, you slipped on the rock.
It doesn't make sense.
No, you still have this moral imperative to help people, especially in my mind if you are an all-powerful, all-loving God.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to argue that God is not all-loving or God is not all-powerful, you know, that's different conversation.
Yeah.
But that's not what we were taught, and that's not what the majority of Christians who I talk to. I do know some who believe that, but that's not what the majority of Christians that I know subscribe to.
So that was tough. The things that people say when a loved one dies, oh, he's in Jehovah's memory. You'll see him in the paradise. There's no reason to believe that any of those things are true. Because all I've seen is a constant state of inaction. And really not for much reason other than for God's glory. Because I don't understand why... I'm not sure why it would be necessary for us to go through the suffering and the pain.
The explanation we're given when you really go to break it down does not make sense. So anyways, at that point, again, like I said, I had not watched anything apostate. I'm like, all right, I don't believe this. I'm still afraid to look at anything apostate. Yeah. I don't believe this. I don't even believe in God. I'm afraid to look at this. So what do? I look at Wikipedia. Because, you know, I mean, it's Wikipedia.
Yeah, it's Wikipedia.
It's Wikipedia.
You can't look at Wikipedia.
If I'm afraid to look at Wikipedia, that's crazy. So I look at Jehovah's Witness stuff, and I'm looking at list of famous Jehovah's Witnesses. And I see, different names I recognize. Some that I knew were witnesses, some I didn't. I see a name, Chris Stuckman. And I'm thinking, who's Chris Stuckman? I'm not sure who this is. So I Google his name, and I see he's a guy who makes like movie reviews. So I think, oh, okay, cool. Let me check it out. Click on his page. And one of the first things I see is his video talking about why he left Jehovah's Witnesses. And I click off of it. I mean, it's still hardwired in.
When you're a Jehovah's Witness, you're taught that anybody that is left, it's apostate. They're apostates.
They're
pretty
evil.
much.
They're the
evil.
worst of the
they
worst.
They are.
Yeah.
They
lying.
are tools of Satan,
Yeah.
and you can't trust anything that they say. It's a zero tolerance policy. You don't even listen. You don't look. They're all crazy.
So I just was like, all right, put it out of my mind. The next day I'm at work again, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it. And I watch his video, and I realize he's not crazy. This guy could be me. I'm watching somebody talk about their life experiences, and they're not crazy. There's somebody who's seeing the same problems that I'm seeing. I'm not the only one. In my mind, I'm the only one. Other people who have left, no, they've left for other reasons.
Yeah,
it's because
right.
they want to do this or they want to do that. Like,
they want to live a nasty lifestyle.
Yeah, or something. Like, I don't know. You're so brainwashed. I was so brainwashed. And his video made me say, I don't want my children to grow up in this. It's not just a matter of, oh, their mom's going to teach them one thing, I'm going to teach them another. It was, I do not want my kids to grow up in this, because I had to give up sports. I had to give up friendships, and my parents did not force me to give up friendships, but the congregation essentially does. I mean, you can lose.
You know what's expected.
Yeah, you can lose friends within the congregation because you have friends who are not witnesses.
Right.
You
absolutely will.
I mean, I've heard people talk about these things before, like
Yeah.
witnesses have conversations. I don't think I'm gonna hang out with X anymore because he has this friend who he's still really close
There
with,
are
who's not a
parts
witness.
about
Yeah,
this.
there's For Chris Stuckman, one of the big things, the elders made him stop making YouTube videos, stop making movie reviews. He's getting in trouble for certain movies that he's gone to see, PG-13 movies, because you can't watch rated R. They're PG-13 movies, but they have some kind of element to them that is discouraged.
Right.
So, like, he's got elders telling him this, and one of the elders he knows has seen the movie. That one of the elders in this group that's telling him this. And it was one of those moments that completely flipped my world upside down and made me realize I'm not alone, and I got to get my family out of this. I got to get my wife and children out of this. And thankfully, Taylor was 95% of the way there, and it just was a little bit of nudging. But then I went down the Reddit, rabbit hole, which I had seen exjw for years. When Darren Collison, the NBA player, announced he was retiring because he was a Jehovah's Witness and all of this stuff, I see a comment, this block comment, and it's somebody saying, if he were ever read this, I'm an XJW, and I will click off of it. So I'm like, all right, well, I know where I'm going now. I'm watching the Australian Royal Commission. I'm reading about Raymond Friends, who was a governing body member who left in the late 70s. I'm reading about 1975, a failed prediction of Armageddon.
And these are not, I think a huge thing for me was that these are not opinions. The stuff that at this point you're seeing, I mean, some of the stuff you have to find
Some of it may be
opinions,
opinion.
but a lot of the stuff is facts.
A lot of it's factual, yeah.
It's factual news.
Yeah, they
reports.
have the data. They have, here's this talk, and here's a recording of it. Here's the transcript of it. Here's all of these things that are showing me, all right, it's not just a religion that I don't believe. It's legitimately harmful. And I had no idea about the child sexual abuse that was happening and the issues. I did not grow up gay within Jehovah's Witnesses to think about the effect that this has on a person. To see the effects that shunning has on a family, to see people who have committed suicide because they're being shunned, to see the people who have died because of not having a blood transfusion. And yeah, at that point, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm done. Like, I'm not listening to any more of these meetings. I mean, Taylor can put them on, but I'm doing other stuff.
Yeah.
Because...
And at that point, I think that was around when we watched Station 11.
Yeah, so you basically, you were still kind of like dealing with it, and I showed you the bite model.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the bite model
I was in denial when I first saw that.
Yeah, a cult psychologist, Stephen Hassan, who he had been in the Moonies cult, and he basically took this other model that was from Robert J. Lifton in the 1950s that looked at, I think it's prisoners of war maybe, and how they were conditioned, how they were basically mind controlled, not like sci-fi mind controlled, but how they were manipulated to do certain things, believe certain things. And he took that and applied it to religions and came up with the bite model. So it's behavior, information, thoughts, and emotional control.
You should look it up. If you don't know what that is, definitely you should look it up. It's
high control religions. You're going through this, and the way people behave, who they're around, what they read. Huge thing for me. You can't read anything negative. You can't read anything critical. If it's true, truth stands up to criticism.
Right.
If we do a peer-reviewed science study, and all of these people are replicating the results, okay, we have something solid here. If people are finding things that does not align, okay, the conclusion this other one came to is probably not true. So when science is not agreeing with it, when history is not agreeing with it, when archaeology, when all of these things, when there's how many denominations, when there's all of these things that are pretty conclusive to me that, okay, this religion does not have the truth. I don't really think any of them do at that point. That's what I'm saying. Why am I going to be dogmatic about it? Some religions are not that way, but Jehovah's Witnesses are not one of those religions. So yeah, at that point, I introduced you to the bite model. That took a little... You were like, no, they don't. And then you thought about it, and you were like... I was like, no, go through each line item. Yeah. Don't just listen to me. Read through it and think about it. And you were like, oh no, this is...
Which is scary. It's scary to... of course, Jehovah's Witnesses get called culty and stuff. You hear that all your life. But to see the evidence and truly look at it from an unbiased point of view, because at that point I still wanted to believe it, so I'm just trying to look at the bite model for what it is and see if I see any similarities or anything that rings any bells, and you can't deny that it does. You can't.
Yep. So around that time, Taylor was really kind of getting into a point of, okay, I don't believe this religion, but what am I going to do? That's pushed into you. Where will we go?
Yeah, what do I really believe?
Yeah. And that's a hard point to come to as well, because you're told you have the truth. Everything is black and white. That's what was causing me so much anxiety. Part of it was everything is so black and white. You leave, and then what?
Yeah, you can't take
You want everything to be black and white. That's what you've been trained to do. Gray is hard. Yeah. It's difficult. And so you're kind of in this place of, I don't know what to believe. And you really have to start to rebuild. Take things that you liked, keep them. Take things you didn't like, get rid of them. So yeah, we watched Station 11, HBO
Phenomenal.
show.
Highly recommend.
And what's the quote from?
I don't want to live the wrong life and then die.
Yeah.
And that hit me so freaking hard.
Both of us.
Oh my goodness.
Because we were kind of in this in-between of, all right, we don't believe this, but what are we going to do? Like, lose our whole family?
Right.
Because
that's what happens. That's what happens. We've been pretty lucky compared to a lot of people, but a lot of people leave the Jehovah's Witness faith and lose everything.
Yeah.
Even jobs. You know, if you're working with all witnesses or you got the job because your manager was a witness and you knew him growing up or whatever.
Family-owned businesses.
Yes, absolutely. Jehovah's Witnesses are not owning these elaborate companies.
A lot of them are family businesses that don't fall under
blue
religious.
Collar.
Yeah, it's not like oh no, they can't do that because it's religious discrimination. A lot of them don't meet the threshold to be under those laws.
No. And so at that point, watching Station 11, thinking about ourselves, not wanting to, again, live the wrong life and then die, but also thinking about my brother. Not that I feel like in any respect that I would say that he had the wrong life or anything like that, but for our own life, feeling like we wanted to be who we are.
Yeah, if this is the only life we get, we need to make good use of it.
And not just for ourselves, but for our babies, you know? We want to raise, and we've always been on the same page, wanting to raise kind, loving kids, no matter what they grow up to believe. If our kids grow up to be Jehovah's Witnesses, honestly, I'd be a little disappointed. But if they are kind, loving individuals and they're not doing harm to other people, I will respect their wishes. But we want...
I don't know if I feel the same.
We want to raise loving people.
But a large part of that is because of the love part, because of the shunning.
Yes.
So I don't want you to shun me
that's
we
true.
don't agree.
But what I'm trying to say is that
but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. We want them to have happy, loving lives.
Yeah.
And at this point, we are not living the life our real, you know.
Yeah. My birthday that year, 2022. So that was like December, January. My birthday's in January. Taylor got me a gift and was like, this is like, I know it's your birthday, but this isn't a birthday present.
Yeah.
You know. Taylor wasn't sure what to do about the memorial. I told Taylor I ain't calling. If you want to do it, I'll go in the other room and play the video games.
To miss the memorial at first.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, you know, I've literally gone to every single memorial every single year.
Yeah, your entire life. We've done them at home. You and y'all have made the bread at home and stuff.
It doesn't matter what happens. We went to the memorial.
You were in that black and white, trying to shift into a gray, trying to decide, like, if not this, what do I believe and what impact does that have on my life? Yeah. So.
Yeah, we weren't celebrating holidays.
Yeah. And a big thing for me, like, all right, so I'm a big comic book reader. Like, that's something that I got into leaving. Yeah, like all of these are comic books. Because I'm a child.
No, there's nothing wrong with comic books.
All right, so I grabbed one, but I need to grab the other. All right, so this book, Blankets, by Craig Thompson. No relation. If you know us, that's our last name, Thompson. But yeah, book about somebody leaving a high control religion, being raised in it, the effect it has on them, trying to go on to lead a fulfilling life. All right, the other one is a comic book called Day Tripper. It's Gabriel Ba and Fabio Moon, I think are their names. It's two brothers, but it's about a guy, and basically, like, if you died at different points of your life, what would your obituary be? And it was another one that made me really reflect on, how do I want to live my life? I knew that I couldn't live my life and pretend to be a Jehovah's Witness and then have my child come to me and say, Dad, I'm 25 years old and I'm having doubts about this stuff. And me be like, oh yeah, me too. You know, I couldn't do that to him. But at the same time, I'm extremely afraid to lose my cousins and aunts and uncles and my parents possibly.
And also at this point, we find out we're having a girl. About to have a baby girl. Huge issues with misogyny.
Yeah. Oh, yep.
Can't get around that. I mean, there's no...
Yeah. I had a friend who, basically, he's the only friend that I've really talked to about Jehovah's Witness stuff, who he's a Jehovah's Witness. And I tell him, like, yeah, I don't believe anymore. You know, he's still talking to me and stuff. But I haven't talked to the elders. I mean, I've talked to him a little bit, but not enough to where they know everything I'm feeling. So they're pushing him. They push him. He finally tells one of them, like, yeah, he doesn't believe in God anymore. So at this point, our daughter is like maybe about a month old. And I get a text from the elder. We're at the doctor with her. And I get a text saying, so I know you don't believe in God anymore. Have you considered X, Y, and Z?
I forgot all about that.
And this was an elder that when I was a kid, he studied with me, and his son and I were good friends. And so we kind of go back and forth because I'm being told, well, your reasoning is faulty. This is not correct. I'm like, well, tell me what's not correct about it, because you're just telling me I'm wrong, but the explanation you're giving is not telling me that I'm wrong. It's just saying, this is why we believe this. And I know what you believe.
Right.
I was a Jehovah's Witness who could tell you everything that Jehovah's Witnesses believe. Because those things, that's what I believed. I mean, those things were important to me. If I wasn't sure, I was going to look it up. So yeah, basically he reports back to the elders. I'm getting a couple phone calls. I basically tell him, the brother who I was so close to that I've talked about before, he calls. We have a kind of a emotional, heated conversation at times. He cools off. Not heated on my part, but he gets a little heated. He cools off. We talk. He's like, I'm going to try to be understanding. Like I said, this is a good person. This is the kind of person that elders should be. And yeah, they basically leave us alone. So we start living our lives. We say, all right, well, we may not post all these things on Instagram or social media for a while, just kind of play things out, not put pressure.
We took a step back.
Yeah, we took a step back. Now, at this point, beards weren't allowed. I had a little facial hair growing. I don't grow a great beard, but I had a little facial hair growing. Yeah. And people are like, ring. Oh, Taylor got a nose ring. Yeah, so that was like August, right? So then people start unfollowing on social media. Yeah. All right, Halloween rolls around. We have our first Halloween with our children.
Because it looked like this huge just switch, I'm sure, to people. But trust me, we did lots of reflection, self-examining, trying to figure out what we believed as a family, what we wanted to teach our children, what we wanted them to know about us growing up as Jehovah's Witnesses, how we were going to handle all of those things. It was not a decision that was made overnight by any means.
And we didn't leave so that we could celebrate holidays.
No.
It was
when
more
we left,
a reason
I was still like, but I'll never
celebrate holidays. I might celebrate a birthday or something. That's what Taylor said.
Yeah.
And people would ask me, well, are you going to celebrate holidays? And I would say, I don't see why not. Yeah. I don't really... And they're like, oh, well, look, if you don't believe it anymore, why should I hold myself to these teachings that I don't believe? Why should I force myself to live as a Jehovah's Witness if I'm telling you I think Jehovah's Witnesses are wrong? And I think you're making a category error from the jump.
You don't believe there is evidence at this point in time of a higher power or a spiritual realm, whatever someone may refer to it as. So there's no reason for us to not, because a lot of people, for those who don't know, Jehovah's Witnesses do not celebrate holidays, specifically the religious ones, because a lot of them are,
pagan.
Yes, they are original,
non-Christian. But even the ones that are Christian in origin, they don't.
Yes, but for us who do not believe in demons or Satan or any mystical woo-woo, we're not worried about that. So,
yeah. And I mean, how many Christians celebrate Halloween and are okay with it? I mean, a lot of people can recognize it for what it is kids dressing up and getting candy. Yes. And that's what it was. And we had a great time. But I told my brother, like, yeah, I'm not going to post anything on social media, whatever. He got tagged. So we went with my brother. My brothers are not baptized. They're not witnesses. So we go with my brother and niece's sister-in-law. And they have some friends who we don't know, but have invited us over because, hey, they're nice people. There's nice people outside of Jehovah's Witnesses. And one of their friends posted a picture, tagged Matt in it. That's my brother. Some family sees, he's tagged in it. We're in the photo. All right. Then people start.
Oh, heck breaks loose.
Oh, dang.
Oh, dang. They done found us out.
So I get cousins texting me like, we had this bonfire every year. Y'all are uninvited from it. All right, cool. I wasn't gonna go anyways because it's a congregation thing. I don't consider myself part of the congregation, but okay, cool. I love you still. That's what I say. I
This is
get
a
it. I
choice
love
that
you.
you all are making.
I didn't even say
we
that.
Are not. I know. I'm just saying.
Okay.
We don't feel animosity towards you.
I mean, I told him like, I understand it. I love you. I get no response back. So I mean, I'm feeling this immediately. We're already kind of experiencing that to an extent. People acting funny toward us. They knew we hadn't gone to the memorial. They knew we weren't there, but they didn't know generally where our minds were at. So that happened, but the elders kind of had a hands-off approach. They didn't call me. They didn't do a whole lot. Yeah. All right. Then at some point, I don't even know when this happens because we stopped being in the loop. They form a new congregation because we were in that large congregation. They form a new one. We got moved to that one. These elders are different.
Yeah.
They are not saying, all right, they're, whatever. They start coming around. So that next Halloween rolls around and they start popping up at the house. You got pumpkins on your front steps.
I forgot about the pumpkins.
You think it's okay to have pumpkins?
They're not jack-o'-lantern.
Like they showing up at our house uninvited, calling me constantly. I'm not answering. They keep showing up. It was stressing me out. So eventually I said, I'm just gonna talk to them. Actually, no. They called from a different number, and I thought, this might be them. But it was a number I didn't know, out of state. So I said, well, let me answer it, whatever. And it was them saying, oh, this is such and such from the congregation. We haven't met. It's nice to meet you. And I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't really want to get into it. Okay, well, so eventually I'm like, all right, I don't believe it anymore. He said, oh, okay, well, what is it particular? I said, well, I think shunning is wrong. Shunning? What do you mean?
We grew up in it.
Don't patronize me. Also, I don't know, is it patronize or patronize?
I don't know. I say patronize.
Okay. Anyways, about 5 minutes into the conversation, he says, oh, by the way, I got other elder on the line too. And it turns into this whole thing. I tell him, like, look, if y'all want to disfellowship me, just do it. I don't want to have this back and forth and run around.
Now, was this the conversation where they're like trying to get you to say that you are disassociated?
They straight up asked me, do you want to, so you want to disassociate?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. Now, I've read the elder's manual where it says they should not ask you that question, but they asked me.
They asked, yeah.
And I said, I just told you that shunning is my number one problem. Why am I going to do something that's going to encourage people to shun me? So anyways, right around that same time, I guess this is probably what also brought it on. There was some witnesses that came by our house out in service. They were in their ministry, and I told them I was honest with them because honesty is still the most important thing to me. It's why I left. It's why I couldn't teach my children these things. And I told them I used to be a witness. Here's my top 5 issues. I mean, I was really nice and cordial, and my children are walking up to the door, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, this is my son." I was like, "Yeah." Taylor was not interested in talking.
I was like, "I'm not talking to you."
I'll waste my time talking to people. Taylor does not have. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, all right. Then the elders got sick on us. Then, all right, the thing comes up. Oh, you think it's okay to have? So you think it's okay to have pumpkins on your doorstep? These are not jack-o'-lanterns. It's October, and they are literal pumpkins.
Like they are starting to rot because they are actual pumpkins.
They're actual pumpkins. So we go through this whole thing. Then I'm like, all right, maybe they're gonna leave me alone for a little while. They keep popping back up. They call me every few months, every 3 to 6 months, which I'm assuming when the circuit overseers come in or whatever. And I tell them every time, if y'all want to disfellowship me, do it. I mean...
Which, can I pause for a second and just say, they didn't call me.
Not once.
Not once. No
one.
Once. Not because they didn't have my number or some other, I don't know, but because I'm a woman. Because I'm a woman and he's the head of the household. So I guess whatever Micah believes, they just assume I believe. I don't know. They didn't call. Mm-mm. I got a text when I got a few like texts and calls, like when my brother died, like, hey, how are you guys doing? But that was At this point, that was a year ago.
At that point, it was 2 years ago.
Yeah, it was not.
We go a few months, they call. A few months, they call.
CO visit.
And all right, in the meantime, Taylor's posted a few things on social media related to child abuse happening within Jehovah's Witnesses.
Facts.
Factual cases.
Yes.
A couple of things. Taylor posted this on her social media. I don't even have social media. They basically call and say, hey,
there's a picture circulating.
Oh yeah, we've seen pictures. People are coming up asking us questions. Are y'all still? What should we tell them? I'm like, I don't know. Tell them whatever you want to tell them. I'm not gonna meet with y'all. So we go through this whole rigmarole again, and then they eventually call us and say, hey, you're gonna be disfellowshipped.
So this is from us leaving. This is 3 years from our last meeting attendance.
It's about 2.5. Yeah.
2.5 years.
Yep. So what's funny is like they never reached out to Taylor, but the stuff that they're saying we've done is, well, you posted stuff on apostate websites, which A is not true. And B, the things that Taylor did post that could be considered apostate were not false.
Yeah.
But I said, dang, you got me disfellowshipped.
And I say, you're welcome.
Yeah. And I tell him, look, this will be a whole nother video probably because of the amount of the conversation and everything. And at this point, our family doesn't talk to us. Thankfully, my parents do. My parents are the exception. Jehovah's Witness parents do not typically have regular contact with their children when they've left. Thankfully, my parents do. My parents are good people who are not choosing a religion over their children. They can have both. You can believe in God and have a relationship with your children, even if y'all don't agree on everything.
People can have different opinions and coexist.
Yes. And tolerance is a good thing.
Yes.
You got to learn to live and see that the world is not black and white. The world should not be us versus them. Your mom decided because of things that have been posted on social media that no contact at all.
Friends.
Oh, friends. Yeah, I mean, we
had friends leave before anything, though. I mean, honestly, they saw questionable posts and just decided to cut and run out of our lives.
Yeah.
People we'd known our whole lives.
It's rough. That stinks. But at the same time, thankfully, we have been able to build a life of our own. And thankfully, my brothers are not in it, and your brothers are not in it. And we have family and friends who are loving and understanding.
Yeah, it's like we built our own. I don't even want to say our own. It's just we've been really fortunate to make new friends. Friends between us, for our kids. Yeah, you can have a life. You can have a life with genuine people who they like the same things you genuinely like. You don't have to hide what you like or are into anymore.
And they may not agree with you on everything. And that's
we have friends
good.
Who are Christian.
And that's another thing is like I have friendships at work now that before people at work, it was like I had to put space between us because that's what you're told to do. But now I have friends at work and a lot of them are Christian. And
we probably even have friends that are Republican.
Yeah. Seriously.
Yeah.
And it's okay to have different opinions. And it's okay to be friends with people and love people who don't agree with you all the time. And that's how people's minds change. That's how people learn is not by hearing the same thing over and over again. That you don't grow that way.
Yeah, you have to surround yourself with new people, new experiences.
Yeah. And we've had other friends who have left the religion and other friends who have left similar religions. And it's really great to have those connections and to know that you're not alone. And, that's why I go back to what we talked about at the beginning is, if you're going through something similar, you're not alone. If you want to go to college, but you got people telling you don't because it's bad, you're not alone.
Go to college.
Please. If you got people telling you to get baptized and you don't believe it, don't get baptized.
You know what they say? Jesus didn't get baptized until he was 35 or something. You know what they say that? Don't do it.
I think
Just
29 is like the... Yeah.
I wasn't an academic.
I don't even think that's truly academic, but that's a whole other discussion on what even from the Gospels is accurate. But yeah, so if you are watching this and we know you, we love you.
Yes. We're the same people. We're the same. Goofy.
Yep.
Tired.
I still play my video games.
Yeah.
We just watch better TV shows
yeah,
now.
We watch better TV.
I mean, that's really about it.
Still crafting. Still weird as heck. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
In case it's not clear what we believe.
Okay, so yeah, where are we now?
Yeah.
What do we believe
Update.
now? Yeah.
We are atheists.
Yeah.
We're atheists. For us, there's no evidence that there is a God or anything like that.
Yeah. And if I see evidence that convinces me, I'm willing to be convinced. But
And we're open to conversations.
Open to conversations. Yeah. I don't judge people for believing in God or believing in a higher power or an afterlife. I can see why that's comforting. Absolutely. But as I go back to conversation my dad and I have a lot, if you're building on the basis of, I want to believe what is true, it's hard for me to start at that and get to the point of, okay, I believe in God. I believe these are his sets of morals. I believe that the Bible is from him. I believe that Jesus was sent by him, or he is Jesus is God, or any of these things. I can't accept the first premise. So to me, you have to take the explanation that has the fewest requirements to add on to it.
And for Micah's is much more, how would you describe it?
I mean, there's a moral part, because that's a lot of what led me to leave Jehovah's Witnesses. Was I saw this as morally repugnant and I could not be a part of it. But it also logically did not make sense. And at this point, when I look at the world through an emotional view, also through a logical view, I can't come to the conclusion that God exists and is loving and is powerful and cares about us. If you want to be deist and say, well, no, there's a creator God and he's just completely unconcerned with the affairs of humans, okay.
I mean,
but again, that's you're asserting something without evidence.
Right.
So, yeah, I probably approach it more from a logical view.
For me, I'm much more like emotional and moral.
Yeah. Yeah, yours is definitely more along the lines of, if this is God.
To me, if there is a God, he is immoral.
Yeah. Or has no power.
Yeah. Because...
Or is not... Yeah.
Yeah.
Which a lot of these things are like philosophy 101. But when you're told not to learn philosophy and not to read things that challenge you...
Don't think about it.
You don't think about it.
Turn it off.
Like a light switch.
Go click.
If you haven't seen the Book of Mormon, go see the Book
of
Mormon. So yeah, I guess we'll end there. In the future, who knows if we'll put out anything else? We may. I have a couple of ideas of things.
Sure. If you guys have questions, if you have comments, if you want to talk, if you are a person that knew us, knows us, and you have, talk. Let's talk.
Yeah.
If you have our number, you have our number. If not, send a comment. I don't know, does YouTube have personal message?
I don't know. Do you want to put your Instagram in the comment?
Oh, yeah.
Or in the description? We'll put your Instagram in the well, I don't even know how to,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it'll be in the description.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So that sums it up.
All right. Peace out.
Girl Scout.